learned something. To be successful, you have to surprise. You have to be unexpected. You have to be a bit provocative in a positive sense.
Well, welcome to Bahrain. It's always nice to have you.
Yeah.
I know you love coming here.
I do actually.
Yeah, you do. I know. You have a lot of friends here.
I mean, it becomes closer as well. So
Yeah. It's only 50 minutes away, so now you don't have much of a.
yeah, actually, I don't
excuse.
have. Maybe you shouldn't have told you then.
Yeah. Well, hey, who knows? Maybe I visit you sometime, right?
Yeah, you can actually. You should.
It's a nice place.
Yeah.
I'll bring the kids.
Bring the kids. There's a lot of things to do down there.
Yeah.
I haven't tried any of it though.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's not for you maybe yet.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. I didn't have the occasion, didn't have the time to, you know.
Yeah. But it's always nice having a chat with you. We always like chat about the industry and all that's going on and the past. So I thought maybe we get some nice stories of you from like old days.
The ones I can talk about.
Yeah, things you can talk about, of course, yeah. But generally, we know that SIHH has changed with the Watches and Wonders. Baselworld has disappeared. So for those who are just getting into the industry, they don't know anything about Baselworld. You know, I don't know, how was it? I didn't even see it in the 2010s or even the 90s. So
you're jumping from 2010s to 90s.
How different was it? Was it very different?
No, actually, not really that different. I think my first Basel must have been 98 or 99.
With
that back then I was basically just working like on you know, like on just for the week as support.
Okay.
I think yeah, 99. I did some as a student more or less.
I see. Okay. And you watched? You joined a Swatch Group.
2000. Actually.
2000.
Yeah.
Oh, the year 2000. You know, there's something new I learned. Do you know the year 2000 is a leap year?
Yeah.
But do you know that a century leap year only happens once every 400 years?
Okay.
So a leap year is every 4.
Yeah.
And that's overcompensating. So to fix that overcompensation, once every 400 years, so a century leap year is always not added, except for once every 400 years.
Every 400 years, you got to put a leap day back in.
Back in.
Because the 400 years is still on a 100-year cycle.
Right.
But every 400, you got to put it back in.
Now, who is alive to remember to do this?
That's what I'm saying. Okay. So.
Because at the end of the day, the setting often, I mean, you have simplified settings nowadays, but still, I mean, this watch, you set it once for the next, I don't know how many years, but then you leave it in the safe for 3 days and you start from scratch. If you were, but functionally wise, I mean, technically wise, I do like it very much. But functionally, I'm a much bigger fan of annual calendars, which is actually not that developed. You don't have that many annual calendars. You have,
True.
There is a few brands, but not, I think this is a complication. It's one of these complications that I'm very interested in, which because they're functional, they're technical, but they're functional at the same time, and they're pretty good in daily use.
Yeah.
So maybe one day you will see an annual calendar for Louis Erard or some other brands. Who knows?
Something we need to know about?
No. I'm just
Exclusive.
see, no, but for me this is the interesting thing about traveling and talking with people. You know, it's not just about it's by these discussions some ideas pop up. You know, leap year.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to me, I think the problem with the annual is I haven't really found one that I really like in terms of look. There's a lot happening on the dial.
Yeah. Well, there's one or the others that I do like, but there's definitely it's definitely a complication that I think, you know, that still has quite some potential.
It has a lot of potential, in my opinion.
For me, I mean, maybe it's not as aesthetical as a moon phase, or as emotional as a moon phase, but I think it's just because it hasn't been really worked with a lot of emotionality. It hasn't been added this kind of, you know, sparkling effect.
Okay.
Maybe.
Well, we digress here. We haven't talked about what we originally.
No, it's okay. It's supposed to be a chat, right?
Yeah. But I mean, you reaching here, trends. What do you think? Industry trends?
Well, aside of the usual ones that we have been seeing for the last few years, I mean, one being obviously steel, integrated steel bracelet, more sporty watch,
More color.
Colors also, but just the fact that overall people get more and more casual. You know, I mean,
That's
especially the younger people, sneakers, and I guess this has to do also with how the perception of watches are. The classical watches, maybe on leather bracelet, are maybe also a bit connotated with this more classical look. And we are in this. I think this is one of the major trends. People are more casual, more sneakers. So obviously the watch that you can wear at any moment of the day, at any place, and that still is wearable. I think that's a trend that's not a trend anymore, but that's going to continue. I think. Complications, useful, small, different complications, I think is also something that is gonna remain a trend. Colors, obviously, and especially nowadays, I think we're in a very how do you say that? We're in a very unstable environment worldwide. I mean, a bit of a transition period. There's been a lot of things happening in the last few years. Pandemic, wars, other conflicts, change of shift, big shift in terms of global importance, geopolitical importance, and I think all these also they impact a lot. And this back to colors, I think, yeah, indeed, I think colors, animations. Good news also, métier d'art, artisans.
That's true. Yeah.
Which have always been part, but they were always a bit hidden. And I would say, this kind of putting the people more in the front line is an important thing, and is a trend. Independent watchmakers, obviously, indies. Collectors understand nowadays also that maybe the independent watchmakers, which are often the owners, or which basically own the companies or put their
name on the dial.
Their name on the dial, all their efforts there. They're also more sensitive to how it sustains its value of the product, how much they produce, how much is the market, the offer and demand. And I think a lot of collectors have understood that it's not just the personalization, not just the person behind, not just I would say the touch point, but also the fact that often these watchmakers or independent brands, they're here for the long term. They're not just managers, they're really involved into it. So they're very careful on how they develop their brand, on how much they produce, how much their offer is. They're very, I would say, much more sensitive to the market than brands which are belonging to bigger groups, where it's more about, I don't know,
quantities and
budgets
and numbers.
Yeah, budgets are career plans, maybe even stock options. Well, it's true. I mean, where the manager, whether he's working for this or that brand, I don't think it makes that much difference. There's not that much involvement, association, personification, or connection with the brand. And I think this is a lot of the collectors also have understood that there's more value. I think the internationalization is also a very interesting thing. We have seen in this, I don't think it's a trend, it's a reality that before watchmaking was very much oriented to Switzerland, a bit to Germany, Japan obviously. But today you have watchmakers all over the world.
Absolutely.
And not just Europe, but also other countries. The other day I've seen some interesting projects from Cambodia.
Oh, really?
Because there's wherever. I think one of these things that the watch industry has developed in the last 20, 30 years by creating subsidiaries, local subsidiaries, by developing markets, and therefore also obviously needing to service, to repair, and started to create local schools sometimes. Education has helped to generate in all these countries also, this understanding, know-how, knowledge for watchmaking. And I think this is a trend that we will see continuing in the next few years. I mean, India, definitely going to see one or the other watchmaker from India. We've seen a few from different countries in Asia. Let's see, maybe one day we have even somebody from the Middle East.
Yeah, we've seen, I mean, over here we've seen quite a few brands pop up.
Yeah.
Not made in the Middle East yet. There's a couple of guys that have been discussing with us. They do want to produce something here, but I mean, it needs
time. But then again, it can also go very quickly. You know, this is it a trend? Is it a reality? The fact that the distance between the brand and the consumer has become closer. Yeah. Not just because of retail, or not just because of distribution, also because of media, social media interaction online has created a much more proximity between clients and brands. Yeah. And this also helps to emerge new brands in different parts of the world.
Yeah, information now is so easy to get, and
absolutely,
people are learning faster and faster.
And another very interesting trend, I think, is that a lot of the watchmakers are, I would say, more courageous to build their own companies when they're young, getting out of schools. Maybe also because a lot of the schools have changed a bit their perspective in the way they train young watchmakers. Before, they train young watchmakers with the idea you're going to integrate a bigger brand, an established brand, you're going to work your way up, you're going to make your expertise and experience, and then one day you're going to retire, basically. And then maybe when you retire, you launch your brand. We had a few of these brands, but today what is very, very interesting, you have a lot of very young watchmakers, just basically fresh out of school, which are launching their brands. We have seen a lot of them. I'm not saying a lot in terms of huge numbers, but quite sizable number. Most of them actually from the French Besançon school. That's right. Which are really daring their entrepreneurial approach, and I think this is also a very interesting element in the trend. Is watchmaking has become more entrepreneurial.
I mean, the distribution model has changed completely, so it's so much easier
because the customer and the brand or the watchmaker brand and the customer have become closer.
Marketing budgets have reduced as well because of Instagram. Yeah.
And
word of mouth moves much faster.
Much faster, and today, it's also a bit of a game. A lot of the collectors want to be the first.
Yeah, true.
They want to be the one
that missed the train,
that discovered the new exciting thing, and that obviously creates, and then again, there's also the community issue, the community aspect. I mean, a lot of collectors, they group in WhatsApp or on other platforms.
Absolutely.
And then they, debate, which is good, which we're most of the time not part of, unless we have fake profiles to join them. I mean, everything is possible, but this is I mean, all these elements. I mean, you have obviously product related trends, you have market related trends, you have social media or marketing related trends, and I think they all somehow grow. So I wouldn't even say they're trends, they're realities. And then also, and this is also very interesting, is there's a lot of consolidation ongoing. Okay, so you not only have this kind of segmentation in products, where you have maybe one big leader, and maybe one or two followers, and then there's a big gap, and then you have a few independents, because this is a bit like the market is structuring today. There's much less. I mean, there's still a lot of brands, but there's much less like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 brands. There's one or two, the leaders, and then there's in different segments. Also because the markets have become global, but also because there's a real consolidation. And what is quite interesting is consolidation. We have seen a lot with groups buying brands, creating groups of brands, Swatch Group, Richemont, LVMH, Kering, with not too much success on one side, but now we see this also at the retailers level. The retailers become more and more global, bigger and bigger. You look at chains like Watches of Switzerland, Bucherer, which really become like major.
They move to the US now as well.
Yeah, they move, or here in the Middle East, you see also some moves. there historically has been moved, but there is a consolidation. And another very interesting aspect is supply becomes crucial. Whatever we can say, I mean, there has been, for different reasons, a sort of rejuvenation, if you like, of the Swiss watch, of the watch industry in general, of the mechanical watch industry. Although everybody was very, or let's say a lot of people have been quite negative with the arrival of Apple connected watches, and this gonna be a big challenge to the watch industry.
It didn't do much.
It does, because we never have to forget that we sell a third of the volumes that we sold 25 years ago. So the Swiss watch industry has
been shrinking.
It's a substantial shrinking, more than 50 or 60, I think it's about 60% in the last 25 years, which is a lot.
Value.
Obviously, the value is much higher, it's double or triple. But it means what it means. We sell much less watches at a much higher price. But there's been, in the recent years, and again, I think social media is obviously an aspect. The fact that watches have become an asset class, whether we like it or not. I think overall it's not a bad thing. Watches actually sustain very well. Not all of them, but in general they sustain quite well their value. A lot of the watch brands, again, maybe specifically the independents, have understood that they also have to basically support this.
Absolutely.
In adjusting their offer towards demand, so that there is a second market.
Absolutely.
I think this is an important element. But also we have seen a new clientele coming in. We have seen what I call the sneaker generation, which has discovered watches, and what has been the strongest growing, I would say, clientele or age class have been very young customers.
Agreed.
In the last 10 years, I think the number and the age, the average age of our customers has decreased substantially. You have a lot of young, very interested, very passionate collectors.
Which completely kills everybody's, the young generation don't understand how to read a watch.
Well, they actually today know much more because they're also much more savvy. But they also go quicker. When I was young, it was logical to do like, you get a Swatch, and then maybe one day you get a Tissot, and then Longines, and obviously not just naming Swatch Group, but it's pretty easy within the Swatch Group to explain that logic, and then, the Grail and Omega one day. Today they know what they want. They don't buy brands anymore. They buy products within brands.
True.
More and more, they want to have the Speedmaster. Maybe they start with Moonswatch nowadays. Not bad. So not that much has changed, but a lot has changed at the same time. But let's say the Moonswatch, then maybe the Speedmaster. Then they want to have their Daytona, or their Pepsi, or their Kermit, and then it has to be Royal Oak. It has to be this and that. And then, and this is the interesting thing, they are willing, they go back down in prices. We see this on Louis Erard, for instance, and also on Raqueta, is that then they're looking for something special, for something different. Once it's a little bit like music. When they know how to play the instrument, they want to go a bit more wild. And it's not the same, I would say, basic step-by-step evolution into collecting watches. It's going very quickly into the different things, but then it moves also much more up and down. So people are much less price oriented. They're very much product oriented.
Yeah, it depends on what they feel like, the taste at the time.
Absolutely. So this also
Louis Erard creates a color, launches a color which they like.
And by the way, to get back to what I said with the consolidation, because I didn't finish it, is yes, there is these groups of retailers that become bigger and bigger, that get more and more global, but they also start to buy brands. I've seen the other day, without naming it, because I don't think they want us to talk about it yet, but maybe something to dispatch. But I've seen 2 or 3 retailers which invested into brands.
Okay.
Because again, we have this issue of supply, offer and demand. And a lot of the retailers also want to secure somehow because they know that the only way to grow for them is to have access to product. And today the market becomes more global. It becomes, there's more sales, it's more omni-channel. It's not just through retailers. There's also direct sales, online sales, different platforms. So we see a lot of consolidation going on. That's okay.
I don't know what happened.
But then, and this is maybe why you're coughing, you see exactly the same, I would say, structure of bigger, more international players, retail players, and the emergence in recent years, and this is for me very, very interesting, of very passionate, very local retailers. That exactly like you do it, that don't have any of the, let's say, very established brands, but they really go for independents and niche brands, and they making their market.
Yeah, the idea is to, I mean, we enjoy dealing with the brand, the owner directly, rather than.
But it's also your product offer is very specific, and you don't have this kind of, let's say, price oriented retailer anymore. This we see disappearing. So you have either big players, more and more global players. A lot of them also, some of them on the stock market, some of them in foundations. And then you have the emergence of a few very local, very specific players. We've seen in the Middle East, Timekeepers is a good example as well. They just opened a store.
Shout out to our friends.
Yeah, but also very interesting because they come in from, let's say, more the activation.
Absolutely.
And they're moving into it because they're passionate for what they do. I see this also with retailers in Europe, which is good also because Europe is a very traditional market. We have seen it in Asia a little bit. And I think this is also a different approach. I mean, the number of touch points is changing. And it's not just about watch retailers. You have people who move into it from passion. And, again, Timekeepers is a good example. Mm-hmm. And I think this is good for brands like us because there are people behind it who are passionate, knowledgeable, with whom we interact very easily. And I think this is something that we will see developing in the next few years as well.
Okay.
There's a lot of talking about trends, but I guess...
Well, I got stuck there.
That's okay.
But yeah, trends depends on what trends in general is
well, it's
quite
not really,
vague.
it's not really trends anymore. I mean, they're basic.
Where the move in the industry is going in the next few years, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, this is global in the watch industry, and then we can go a bit more specific, which I think is a very good example also with Louis Erard, is we see also more and more cross-fertilization, collaborations, and in all sorts of fields. It's very interesting how collaborations have become very, very important.
You're the pioneer? One of the first?
Yeah. One of the pioneers, yeah. One of the early movers, let's say.
What was it, 2008, 9? It's later.
A little bit later, 2011, when I started doing, with RJ back then with the video games.
And nobody believed in that.
Well, you want the story about the
please.
No, that's actually a good story.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Tell me.
I always told myself, and this was the interesting thing about, I learned a lot with RJ back then. I learned because I started my career in the watch industry at Jacques Erol, which was a brand that had a very long history, credible history. Pierre-Jacques Erol, one of the greatest watchmakers of all time. Very traditional, very classical, and I had this, I would say, chance to be at the right place at the right time, and to be able to run the company when it was very, very small. I mean, I remember we started Jacques Erol back in the Swatch Group, which back then was the biggest, the leader and the biggest producer of Swiss watches in the world. Come another anecdote a little bit later on, but But we really started it. We really built this company as a startup. We were 3 at the beginning. I was lucky enough to be able to create the entire identity and the products and everything by myself. Obviously, a lot of inspiration from the history, but I had total freedom. But
that's what you don't have every day today. I mean,
I still do.
No, as in the groups don't have that anymore. People in your position today.
No, not anymore. But also because I would never have had it if it was of any strategic importance.
That makes sense.
You know, when you're in a Swatch Group, which back then was already doing a few billions a year, maybe 5, 6, and you do 200,000, nobody cares. And that was a big advantage. I mean, and this is probably, I was burned by that. I was burned by too much freedom. This was also a reason why I did a few changes in my career, because I just got too used to do a bit what I want and to have a lot of freedom, which doesn't really work very well in corporate environments. But anyway, cut a long story short, managed to build a company that was very much what I liked back then. And I got very much inspired by Lange, because for me that was the reference in 2000. For me that was...
at the time,
still is. I mean, but for me that was the ultimate...
talk of the town at the time. Oh.
Yeah, but even aesthetically, it had something. I mean, it still has, obviously. But for me, this has been one of the brands that inspired me a lot. Anyway, but it was in a very classical and traditional way, because the frame was set. The frame was set, and I'm not talking about corporate frame. I was talking about the frame of the brand, because the history of Pierre Jacques Hérault himself. I wanted to stick to this. Roots, even though we did a very contemporary interpretation of it, I still wanted it to be connected to its roots and history. And then I left because I was too successful, and the more we grow, the less freedom I had. So somehow it didn't work for me. I mean, I had a fantastic time in Swatch Group. I can't say that. I was working with late Nicholas Hayek. He was my mentor, and it was incredible, the years with him. But then I worked with him and for him, not for the rest.
Yes.
Anyway, when I felt things were changing, for me it was time to leave. And back then, people from RJ approached me, and although I didn't like the brand, didn't like it, I just liked the idea that this brand had absolutely no
strings
frame,
basically,
absolutely no limitations, because they broke all. I mean, it was iconoclast. They broke all the framework. But then again, when you have no frame, you got to find things, because then, you know, too much freedom can also be. I mean, I think being creative without the frame is pretty hard. Because you can start to think a lot before you actually end up doing something, because you don't know where to start. It's not an easy. I think creating without constraint is much more difficult than creating with constraint. That's my opinion.
Was there 100% no constraint? I mean, when you got in the Titanic watch was already.
Yeah, but we had to move around move away from this, because Titanic was obviously very, very strong, and the Moon much less. But people already anticipated the whole scenario. So basically people were saying, oh, you did Titanic, you do the Moon, then you're going to do the Great Wall of China, the pyramids, and everybody was already rolling out the whole plan. So, and I learned something: to be successful, you have to surprise, you have to be unexpected, you have to be a bit provocative in a positive sense. That was one thing. And the other thing was that they started with a very powerful story, but a story that doesn't fit into all markets. Titanic doesn't work in Asia. Never did, will never do, because the connotation was negative.
Yes.
And it just doesn't fit with the karma. So we said, okay, but it was these legends. They were interesting, but then we said, okay, we need to create something else that is more global, more positive, that remains provocative, but that is different. And I said, okay, well, we have the legends. Well, how about the icons? Okay, it just somehow fits together. And then I said, okay, this is one thing, and at the same time, we need to come up with something that's powerful, that people can connect to. And I said, okay, what people connect to most is obviously things they have a reference with. And the strongest references are always references from our youth.
Yeah.
So the idea was to say, okay, let's work with these generational icons, okay? That was the first idea, and then we said, and then I have a bit of a backlash. I'm very, I'm passionate about contemporary art, street art, contemporary. I'm design, architecture, art, things that really passion me.
So you'd love to do something with Banksy?
Well, I tried.
Everyone tried.
Not everybody. I'm sure some people don't even know.
No, yeah. I mean, few guys.
I agree. But so I wanted to start, and I said to myself, okay, video games, so this idea, but art, okay? So the initial idea was to do like Space Invaders, the artist, not the video game.
Okay.
So I said, oh, this guy this is cool, I do something similar. And then I like this idea of cubicle things, and anyway. And then I had some ideas, and then one of the lawyers said, but, you can't use Space Invaders without using the rights. I said,
absolutely.
Why? I said, the artists do, and said, yeah, not an artist, I'm sorry to tell you. Even if you like to think you are, you're not, you're still a brand, and they will. So I said, okay.
Love them or hate them, you sometimes need
Okay, well, let's do the contractual thing. Which, by the way, is another very funny story. I mean, we're going in a wrong circle before we get back to the story. But it's okay. So anyway, I contact these people from Taito. They push me back to some lawyer company in the UK, which handles their worldwide rights. I contact them. They write me back, basically saying, "Oh, I would like to, get a royalty to do watches with Space Invaders." They write me back. So, okay, how many thousands? and what's going to be the price? Like $10, $1? And I write back, no, I'm sorry, we're only going to do like 100, but it's going to be 20,000.
Yeah.
So they called me saying, we don't understand. Why would you do something for 20,000? Nobody does.
Who's going to buy it?
Nobody's going to buy it. Yeah. Anyway, they said, we don't understand, please come to London and explain the thing. So I went to London and I explained the thing, which was pretty funny because I was around this table with like 15 lawyers trying to make them understand that I'm actually making out of their video game brand a luxury brand.
Yeah.
Which
it's just...
After a while they said, okay, what's the down payment and how much you're going to pay? And then probably they must have said, this guy is a bit nuts. Anyway,
if we're going to get paid, well, might as well.
Yeah, but they made me pay up front. Because they didn't,
they don't believe it. Yeah,
they didn't trust me. Anyway, it was a good story. So I did these two prototypes. I paid up front. I brought them to Basel. I think it was Basel 2000. Was it 11 or 12? Anyway, I had a color version and a black and white version.
Yeah.
Okay. With the whole setup and story.
I want to see the setup.
Yeah, it was.
I googled it. It's a bit hard to. I mean, I think I found something, but it was a very old picture. I'm sure you have the pictures.
No, of
the stand, of the booth.
We did a lot of thematic stands.
Yes. Which something that's interesting.
Yeah, like a ball bath and stuff like this.
Yeah, RJ stands were quite interesting because
they were cool.
They're very different from everybody else. Typical, boring.
Well, at a certain stage, people had to jump in these, ball baths to get into the booth. Which is pretty funny.
We need photos. I need photos of this.
I think you find some of them online. Anyway, so I had this box, like this cubicle box, and then some of them was with luminous. Yeah. So I want to do I was super excited. I thought it was the best project of my life. Somehow I always think that with any new product. But anyway, cut a long story short, so I wanted sort of surprise. Okay, so I did the sort of cubicle box, like a pixel, like a big pixel with light, and then people had to watch in and take their orders.
We had something like that, yeah.
Well, I only got 2 pieces on order, and I think the only guy who ordered was my biggest client back then, Chronometry, which was really specialized in independent, which out of saw my excitement and said, okay, look, I take one. He took one of each anyway, so I was like, nobody wants it. And I was super disappointed because I thought we had like a big thing, and
So Basel was a flop.
it was a total flop. 2 pieces sold, but basically with back then I think we paid like 20,000. It was a lot of money for us back then to an advance payment. Then I said, okay, well, nobody orders, I'm not going to produce. So I had the 2 prototypes. I liked it to put it on the wrist, and you know, I started to meet friends, and everybody started to say, this is super cool. I want this. Why don't you do it? Can I order it? And so on. And I started to understand that there was actually people who, their clients, friends, collectors loved it, but no retailers liked it.
Yeah, the problem was the retailer, because the retailer, it's outside their comfort zone.
Well, it was, and so we decided back then that we just, I told to myself, look, nothing to lose. Let's just do a press release and just launch it and then see the reaction.
Yeah, because at Basel you hadn't launched it. It was
not officially.
Okay.
It was
So
just it was a preview
for the retailers.
It was for the. But then
people don't know this. Back then, things used to be done differently.
It was not like today.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no.
When it's
there
launched,
was
it's launched.
no
It's online.
Instagram, and so
It's
I don't
all
think
over
it-
the place.
No, Instagram was already there, but.
No, 2011, 12. It was not.
Well, I remember Watch Anish coming and
I mean, I was on Instagram.
Sorry, Anish, but begging to that I give him 5 minutes so he can take a picture of a watch.
Yeah.
Today it doesn't really work that way
No.
anymore. But okay, to cut a long story short, and the success was huge, and it's just, and basically what's the consumer who drove the retailer back to us, and then the order started.
It still happens today. by the way.
Still, yeah, but back then it was quite something new.
Yeah.
And for us, it was the first time we had like a huge media coverage, because obviously all these geek platforms took it over. All these internet sites and whatever was around gaming and so on took it over, and we had a lot of visibility with it. And over the years, we did Space Invaders several editions, and we moved to Pac-Man, we moved to Donkey Kong, we did Mario, which was my favorite, Pokemon,
yeah, that one.
before the game.
That was a big sellout.
No, because I didn't believe into it.
Yeah. But I thought you did well in Asia.
Well, the thing is, so we do all these video games, and then suddenly, because we created that momentum, it's the companies who contact us. So I obviously went to Space Invader Taito. I went to Pac-Man. Mm-hmm. I went to Super Mario, Nintendo. Okay. But then Tetris came to us.
Okay.
And also Pokemon came to us. Okay. They contacted us, said, "Oh, you're doing super cool. Do you want to do something with Pokemon?" That was before the game, by the way. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Not really. Not my not my taste." Yeah. I mean, I gotta admit when I'm wrong. So they said, "Yeah, but you should. We know it's gonna be the 20 years next year, and we're gonna have a big thing coming." And I was like, "Yeah." Back then I said the contrary. Now I can be honest about it. I said, "Okay, let's do 20, because it's always good to feel something. We need to have something to talk about." So we did 20, and we signed a contract for 20. And then, so we prepared the thing, and then they launched this, the Pokemon game.
Oh, the game, yes.
And everything went.
It blew up.
It blew up and we were just ready with the product. So we launched the product, and obviously we're sitting on a contract. And once you sign these contracts, you can't change them. They're very. So what we did is initially, we tried to compensate and run after the thing. So basically we were 20 pieces. So basically 20. So we did number 0. So we had already 21. Then initially it was like 12,000. I think 12,000, and then we changed the price to 20,000 on launch. But then I was thinking that, okay, let's try to take a bit of advantage, because the market, I mean, we did things, and then we understood that there was so much demand. We had like, I don't know, maybe 300 pieces back then. It was a lot. Well, these 20 Pokemon. So we said, okay, we said 20,000, but then we said 20,000 monetary units. Okay. So we said
you were just like,
yeah, and so the monetary units, it was a pretty funny story. It was to say, okay, we said 20,000, so we couldn't
go back
up. So we said, but you choose the monetary unit you want to pay with. Okay, so you could choose dollars, Swiss francs, euros and pounds.
Okay.
So we only took the orders of those who paid in pounds. That's it. Okay. I mean, okay.
So a lot of shady business goes on, but this is not. I mean, it's not too bad. There's, I'm sure, a lot worse stuff.
Look, there was 21. I mean, the product still is super cool. I mean,
20 pieces.
And then we still convinced them we could do a unique tourbillon. So we did a with super cool dial with like a tapestry dial.
You had someone in mind for it too.
You
had someone in mind for it, I think.
Yeah. I mean, people were crazy. I mean, I could have sold 250, 300 easily. I had 21.
Okay, couldn't you sign a version 2? They were not up for it?
I didn't want to.
You could have done this as a 20-piece super limited first edition.
But there's always this kind of thing of, you said it in a very right way, this shady business. I don't like that. I mean, okay, yes, we increased the price because the demand was so huge from what we initially saw, but we never communicated 12,000. We only communicated 20,000.
This was all internal.
That was internal, and we did the number 0, which is, I think, was okay out of 20 because they were numbered. And then we did the monetary unit thing, but that was also a bit of because what I pre-sold and the margin I give, I didn't change. And I didn't, it's always these kind of things. When something is successful, I learned this lesson back then. Well, yes, you could make much more and try to take the advantage out of it, but I didn't want to, because I think as a respect to the collectors, there has to be a certain, there has to be this, you stick to what you sell.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I know this with Louis Erard, we live this now.
Your word is quite...
One launch out of 2, one launch out of 2, the day we launched, we could sell, a good example is the Shakin collaboration. I had 6,000 people on the waiting list. 6,000 for 2 times 178. Okay, maybe something else is coming. Or let's say something is coming, a second version, but totally different. But then I stop. And I always respected that. When there was a limited edition of 78 for Space Invaders, it was 78. And by the way, the limited edition were more or less the founding year. And the problem of Pokemon is the founding year was after 2000. So
so
it was 02. So we did 20 because of the 20 years somehow. Anyway.
So 178 Louis Erard. This is a question I get asked a lot. What's the significance of that number?
Well, when I took the brand over, I mean, the strategy for me was pretty clear with the collaborations. Let me connect it because it's a very interesting story.
Okay.
So yes, I started with these generational icons, video games, films, Batman, Spider-Man,
absolutely.
which we see Marvel, we see a lot in other brands nowadays. We did film, DeLorean, Back to the Future with pieces of the DeLorean car and so on. I mean, for me, this collaborations was always a part of it. And this is a very interesting connection, actually, again, with these numbers, because back in 2015, I was telling to myself that at this price point, because on average, these video games and Batman, they were all between, let's say, 12 and 20,000, okay? Which is quite a price, and I felt that we were doing too much, and I told myself we were doing back then maybe 1,600 pieces a year. Okay.
And
a
small number. It's not a small number.
It's not a small number. No, business was good, but I felt that we were overdoing it a little bit, and I went to see my investors, and I said, look, the market is changing. We got to be sure that we don't overload the market. We didn't talk about second market back then. That wasn't the theme, but I felt that this is coming. And I told them, look, I would like to reduce our production from 1,600 to 1,000, okay, which is substantial. Not that our week's sales were going down, but I just felt that we're too much in a sell-in logic, and I wanted these pieces because they were very unique to become collectible for the long term. I wanted them really that our clients really it becomes an interesting collection like art. Again, it was this connection with contemporary art. Then obviously my investor said, yeah, but we're not going to cut off 40% of our business just because you feel the market is changing. And I said, yeah, I understand that. This is why I would suggest that we do a second brand or a sub-brand with these collaborations where the price is lower, and we can allow ourselves bigger volumes. Okay. And they said, okay, what do you think of price range? And I said, look, I think there is a whole untapped market segment between 2,000 and 5,000, where actually the brands are very traditional, very volume oriented, where you don't have all these values and collaborations and cool stuff. There's not that many available.
Not fun stuff, basically.
Yeah, and not collectible stuff.
Collectible,
not things that maybe also target a younger audience. But they didn't like my idea. Okay, they said, no, we're going to push more volume. Okay, I said, look, I think it's a mistake. And but they were in this idea because we really had a good momentum back then on RJ. We were really growing strong. It was a nice profit. And they had they started to tell me, yeah, we're going to be the next Hublot and things like this. And I thought it just didn't fit for me. So I left because of that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is where it sort of goes south because we had met maybe 6 months, a year before that. Jon introduced us. I really like the idea, the concept. I think I clicked. I mean, with you. It made sense for me, It was a brand that was going to work for us, but once you left, then it was not interesting anymore.
Yeah, because they pursued this strategy instead of building this collectible ideas, this understanding that there's a offer demand logic, that you gotta always create more market than more offer, more demand that you offer. Yeah. To sustain the value of it. They didn't see it, and I left because I told to myself, with this strategy they want to establish, I had shares in the company back then. I said, my share is going to be worth nothing. So I better leave as long as it's still worth something, and this is where I did my exit. And this actually helped me a lot with Louis Erard, and that's exactly where getting back to it, because when they called me, I didn't find the brand attractive neither. I don't know why. I always work for brands that initially I don't find attractive. Maybe because it helps me because I have more freedom. But I thought the price point was great. It was a brand that had a certain presence, established itself, made many mistakes, but it was in this price segment. I've never been active, and somehow it fitted this idea, and this is why I took this idea over. But I didn't do the same because I didn't somehow.
It's a new challenge. It's completely different.
I wanted to do different, and I didn't want to do another video game. Maybe I will do one day, but I didn't want to start with this because it was too. For me, I couldn't.
It's like the same idea, bringing it.
Yeah. And I couldn't live with this. Yeah, I couldn't do another. I mean, it would be easy for me to do another Pokemon on Louis Erard or another Space Invader. Or even another Marvel, because they don't give exclusivity, so there's a certain. But I thought I want to do it differently. The 178 actually came from the idea to say. First, I said to myself, well, I want something that raises the brand perception. Okay, so I want to take things that the community, the collectors, people who like watches, value. Okay. And what do they value? They obviously value tradition, craft, artisanships, and also a certain number of names. Okay, famous watchmakers. I said, okay, instead of collaborating with another video games, why not collaborating with people that I respect? I have, a lot of admiration. That I think that have. They should have much more visibility and should be much more present. And that's how we started with it. And why is it 178? Because, well, I said to myself, what's the good number? And back then, today it's far too small. Today I'm actually a bit regretting that I didn't choose a bigger number, but okay, it is what it is. And once, I'm one of these persons, when you stick to something, I bite through it. And so I said 100 is too small. It just doesn't make sense at this price point. Mm-hmm. And I thought 500 is too much and too vulgar. Okay, so I said, okay, it has to be between 100 and 500. Okay, so rationally speaking, say 200, 250. I said, it's so boring, this 200, 250, it doesn't mean anything. And I like numbers that talk, and this is again a sort of connection with Jacques Erard, because Jacques Erard, I built the entire brand around the idea of the 8, because of the design of the Grand Second. With the everything was about 8, and all the limitations were about 88. Obviously, had a very strong meaning in the Asian world. 88 success, luck, wealth. But then again, it's not because I target Asian markets. It's just because the Asian numerals actually talk. There's not so many numbers that talk. And 178, literally translated, means Ichi-Fa, which means being strong together, getting successful together, enriching each other. It has a lot of meaning around this idea that it's together. Okay, and for me this made sense to say, okay, I was looking for this figure, and somehow it just popped up with this idea that, while doing collaborations with friends, with people I admire, people I respect, but we want to be successful together. The idea of a collaboration with another person is this, it's been a bit overused, but the 1 + 1 equals 3 and not 2 kind of logic, and it made sense. So the 178 came from that. And today, back then it sounded like it's a good number, and today it's a bit too small, but it's okay. It doesn't matter.
It's not set in stone.
Yeah, I like principles.
That's for your limited editions. So
yes, but then
you have products that are not limited.
Yes, but very few. I mean, there's what is there? 7, currently 8 references.
Yeah,
7, 8 references.
There's always a reference that you like. You can.
Yes, but it's a bit more tricky than this, because
Limited by time. So you say it's only available this year.
No, but don't forget, it depends on who you work with. It's a respect issue. Okay, let's take the 3 very. I would say maybe
this you talk about the collabs, yeah.
Yeah, getting back, but the Y178. If I take the 3, let's say, famous collaborations we did with watchmakers or people from the watch industry until now, well, you have Alain Sebastian, you have Yanni Haute, and you have Konstantin Shakin, which are probably the 3 most known ones. Well, Alain is a very specific case. We did a few different editions. Why? Because Alain today doesn't have his own brand, and he's a creator. And he likes to draw and design stuff, and I'm enjoying doing this together with him. And there's no strings attached in the sense that we can do several, because it's his identity, and whether we do 100 or let's say 500, it's actually in his interest, in our interest. But now if I go to Shakin or Vianney, well, we have another situation. Is they have their own brand. Correct. They have their own demand. They have a lot of people who are dying and waiting to get one of their creations. Out of respect, I don't want to do too many, because I don't want that our collaboration takes over.
I get your point. Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah, I would. It would be so easy to do a second Vianney or a third Vianney. But somehow, maybe we'll do another version one day. But it's I'm not pushing for it, even though I know it's a low-hanging fruit, and I would sell it in a minute, and it would be a very interesting business. And it's the same with Konstantin. We agreed at the beginning to a number, And this is what I do. So before what I said is, okay, we do 178. Today, we have 2 or 3 editions, maybe 4. And I agree to a full number. I'm saying, okay, how much you think is still reasonable? And depending on how they feel about it, say, okay, I can have a bit more, I can have a bit less, but we define it at the beginning. And once it's defined, I don't want to change.
That I understand, yeah.
So
That's
it's
fair.
It's a different ballgame. If I would redo a collaboration with, let's say, video games or cultural icons, well, does it matter that much? No, because it's in their interest, in my interest. Then the only question is how much is
Too much.
exactly. How much is still not enough to create the demand?
It's like Ferrari Enzo when he was asked for the F40, I think, if I'm not mistaken. How many do you think we need to make? The first question he asked, how many can you sell? And he said, oh, well, we can sell maybe 500, then make 499.
Well, and today we know more or less what we can sell, and
It's always better to sell out.
well, it's always
have-
better to sell out very quickly.
Have demand and people interested, rather than having too much product where...
But see also, and this is a brand building exercise, and this is something that I wanted to do in RJ. I didn't get the attention I was expecting. If I look at Louis Erard today, I mean, the brand comes a long way. But today you go on second market and you see some of our products selling at 2-3 times the retail value. And yes, for me this is not the key, but whatever happens, it's an incredible brand building instrument. Because then it's different reasons. First of all, it gives confidence to the client.
Correct.
Because he buys it. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
It's even actually
An asset.
An asset. You talk with retailers. It's also the margin structure intervenes also, because they obviously know that there's no discount, whatever. And all this creates a sort of positive cycle on the brand, and it helps a lot to build brand equity. So we also know that what we don't harvest today, in terms of revenue, we will harvest over time, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay to say that it's potential turnover profit that we don't take.
Yeah.
That will help us in the future to build more brand equity.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
important thing. But so basically, and I think we can bounce back on that. So just to get this idea, I mean, 25 years of watch industry, 2 brands, 2 very different brands. One very traditional about crafts and history and craftsmanship and numbers, all this idea of the philosophy of ape with jacket rule. And the other one totally free with icons and legends and where basically the history was not in the past or not related to watchmaker, but the history was on the wrist, was in the watch.
From recent times. Basically.
Recent times, and I think you actually, if you look at Louis Erard, it's pretty funny. I just noticed this the other day. It's a mix of both. So I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing,
Yeah.
because maybe I go in circle now after a few years. But you have all these values of craftsmanship, traditional watchmaking, at the same time this, let's say, more colorful, more provocative, more creative. This drops. It's also something that I learned with the RJ's drops, because before we presented a collection in Basel to the retailers. They placed orders or not.
Or not, yeah.
And then you produced. And the cycle was there like this for years and years. And the fact that we were probably one of the first brands to break that with RJ, because they didn't like it, so we just dropped the watch because we said
Anyway.
Yeah, because we had it, and we said there seems to be a demand, and then this became recurrent. And
So
actually,
that forced the client to go to the retailer asking for the watch.
absolutely. So
And
basically,
what are you talking about?
we somehow, I don't know, maybe I can say we somehow created this drop. It wasn't us. I mean, it's a reality that we have seen in other industry, but maybe within the watch industry, somehow, because of that constraint we had with the video games, we launched it. And also, maybe another small story which connects with this is when I started with RJ back in 2010. So we had the Titanic, the moon was in the coming, and then people obviously said, okay, pyramid, blah blah blah, and I was like, okay, I need to find a story. So I said, oh yeah, you know, we have the Titanic is sea, the moon is air, and then we'll have Earth. Okay, so everybody was like, oh, Eiffel Tower, Great Wall of China, pyramids, and I was like, what can I do? You know, I told the story, but everybody told me what is coming. So I was like, okay, I have no idea. Okay. So, and just after Basel, like a month later, this volcano went up in Iceland, the Eyjafjallajökull. Yeah,
you can still say it.
I was so much.
I'm not going to try.
Don't try.
Icelandic volcano, that's like...
Well, I went in the meantime 12 times to Iceland just for the sake of it. And I have a retailer with whom I'm still in very good contact.
You need to find something in the Maldives maybe, you know?
Well, there is something in the Maldives, but then I somehow enjoy more Iceland to the Maldives. But anyway, it's fair. Anyway, so we did this watch, and we said we can't produce it, we don't sell it, but we want to make a buzz and we want to be quick. So when the volcano went up, within 3 days we did on Photoshop a watch with I mean, if you find the original picture, it's pretty funny. There's a total. With the center second hand, even though we didn't have it, and we said, okay, let's just do a provocation. I mean, it was the first time we launched a watch didn't exist. I don't think anybody did this before us. Well, some did because they never managed to produce the watch, technically speaking, but just a pure concept, like Photoshop in 2 hours. And then we said, okay, now we have to do a watch that everybody talks about, but nobody wants to buy. Okay. So how to do this? Well, the simplest thing is to make a price that nobody will pay because people think it's crazy. So I said, okay, steel watch, 2 hands. What's the most expensive on the market? More or less. Simple. It was not a it was an ETA movement.
What year was this?
2010. 2010, just after Basel. So we said, okay, we found this Patek, which is 25,000, but it was not an ETA movement. No, just precise in case somebody tells us this. We said, okay, double the price, 50,000. Okay.
50.
50. Put steel case, 7750 ETA-based movement, with a dial that looks like volcanic stone, a bit of hands in the shapes of airlines. And unique piece because nobody's going to buy it anyway. So we launched this watch. I always remember it was on the Monday. The volcano went up like a Tuesday, Wednesday. We worked on it over the weekend. We launched it, and it was the most massive media return that I ever encountered in my career. We were everywhere because we were talking about this volcano for a week, but there was always images of the volcano, nothing else. And suddenly this watch came. So we had like, I remember we were on like the major news channel in Czech Republic with the front page of the Times. I mean, we had incredible, it was everywhere.
And just the watch, the Photoshop.
The Photoshop watch, and obviously what happens?
Yeah. People, you get calls, I want to buy it.
Exactly. So by the end of the first day, we had like 50 pieces on order for 50,000 for unique. So we said, okay, so I remember because Giancarlo was already working with me back then. We were still working together.
He was in RJ?
He was in Jacketor with me in RJ.
Oh, really?
And then he went to HYT.
Yeah. Oh, no, before.
To Jean-Richard.
It was...
HYT and then Bamberg, and now he's back with me. He does a few other things. He's like me, he likes a certain independence. Anyway.
He should. It's his style.
And you know, we've been working for 20 years together, on and off, and I would say we're just friends. And
I learned a lot from him.
And I told Giancarlo, I said, what we do? And he said, well, let it go. I said, yeah, but we don't have to watch. Said, who cares? There's nothing to lose anyway. I said, okay. And look, at the end of the day, we did, in 4 years, we did 300 pieces at 25 because we put the price half. And we said one piece is 50, so 99 pieces 25. Special math here again.
Yeah.
But you can imagine we sold 300 pieces at 25,000 with a steel case and a neta movement, even if it's a 7750, and they still have collectible value. And the funny thing is, so we didn't have anything. It's one of the stories I wanted to tell, and we said, okay, well, we don't have the volcano, we don't have any certificate, we don't have anything, and actually it was some Icelandic woman who contacted us by the end of the week, like Thursday. She saw this on the news channel. She found this great idea. She said, can we help you? Because my husband is in charge of the Icelandic Volcanic Institute. And they provided us with certified material just because they liked the story. So they gave us, they went to the volcano, they took some stone and ashes, put it in a FedEx and said, okay, we certify herewith that this is original material. And we started to do the watches with them. It was just like a natural thing. So I don't know what this is in the history of watchmaking, but I did a few firsts.
Oh, absolutely.
Because not that I really wanted, it just happened to be.
Well, you come up with a new idea that nobody else wants to touch, you know. So.
Yeah, no, we tried to innovate with this, and you know, so I would say these are milestones in my career, because we tried things, and I think this is something that I'm very sensitive to. I'm trying to always feel. I'm a very intuitive person. I'm trying to feel how things are changing, how things are evolving, and I think we've done from an intuitive point of view things back 10 or 15 years that today have become very common. So, which is good on one side, which I think somehow is obviously a very nice way of rewarding somehow to see that other brands are taking them over, but also forces us to me particular to try to push the boundaries and find new things.
Yep.
And now we go back to Basel, right?
Yeah, what stays in Basel, what happens in Basel stays in Basel.
Yeah,
but Basel's over.
Yeah, that's what people say. What happens in Basel stays in Basel, but there's no more Basel, so it can't stay there anymore, right?
Let's see. I don't know. I'm sure you have some stories.
Yeah, I have some funny ones. Yeah. Well, I tell you actually 3 stories. three funny stories.
There should be 178 story.
Well, there's much more, because we actually, now that you're talking, I already have a 4th story in mind. But you remember we with RJ, this is an RJ story, and then the other 2 are Jacques stories. But we always try to innovate with the booths as well. We wanted to have fun booths, and one year we did this when we launched the Super Mario. We did these bowls, these bowls where you jump in. I don't know how you.
The kids
playground.
Playpen.
Exactly.
With the colorful balls. Yeah. Okay.
And we forced everybody to go into the booth through. They had to jump into this.
What, was there like a barrier? So they had to jump in?
Well, they could jump in. There was a stair going down. It was actually 1 meter, so it was not like it was full. And
you would have gotten a violation, because I mean, a person on a wheelchair won't be able to. I'm sure you had access.
Well, there's another access.
Ah, there we go. Okay.
I mean,
but you don't tell everybody that.
Press. Especially the ones who's trying to sell media. Anyway, but the good thing is, at the end of the fair, we made about I would say about $60, 2 wedding rings, and 2
No way.
yeah, and iPhone and stuff. So I remember that we put the findings of the week.
No,
you know, and
people would lose things.
Yeah.
Wedding rings.
Well, they jumped around, so it was wedding rings too.
Also, people had fun. I mean, they loved it.
But what I was always trying to understand is how you would explain that you lost your wedding ring in Basel. You know, what happens in Basel?
Basel stays in Basel.
Anyway, so that was a fun story, but it was another 2 very funny stories that I remember. These were retailers, and one of them was very famous. Both of them very famous retailers. One in Europe, one here more regional in the Middle East, and the first is I had this French actor, a famous French actor, Richard Berry.
Okay.
Some people know, but back then, and he really fell in love with what we did in Jacquedo back then. So he came by himself on the booth. We spent an hour. He looked at all the watches, and he really was happy. And I want to order. I like it. And there was this famous retailer. Big retailer who somehow apparently worked a lot with him.
Okay.
That I always tried to have as a partner, but never answered my phones. Answered email and a few times I went to visit and it never happened. Okay. Anyway, so he walks out of the booth and this retailer comes with the whole team. It's like 10 people, like entourage coming, and I sometimes when I had nothing to do, I went also on the reception and did the reception planning and stuff like this. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty hands-on. So anyway, it happened that I was at the reception doing some things on the computer. This person runs into me and says, you know who I am. It's very, very important. I want to have a meeting right now, immediately, because I want to order these watches. And I was like...
He doesn't know who you are.
Well, should he or should know who I am because I met 3 times.
Oh, really?
Without success.
I see, okay.
But I understood that this person didn't recognize me.
Yeah, okay.
So there was not like, hello, how are you, greetings, nothing. It was just like immediate, treat somebody not very well just because you're important. Anyway, I was standing there and I was saying, okay, well, it happened that the meeting would be with me. Mm-hmm. You know who I am. So this person, I feel the tension going up, getting red and not knowing how to answer. Trying to find some sort of, and I said, look, I'd be very, very honored to work together with you. But before that, I suggest you to walk around the booth with all your entourage. Come with a big smile, gave my name, say hello. I'm happy to see you. Do you have time for me? And I'll take you immediately.
So you made them walk around?
No, she went ballistic.
No way.
It was a big drama. It was Swatch Group time. I ended up having country managers, brand CEOs. What are you doing? What are happening? I said, do nothing. I just wanted a basic hello, how are you thing. Yeah. So that was a big drama. And Mr. Hayek came. I said, look, I just thought it'd be nice to say hello and start on good. So that wasn't a very good move. But anyway, sometimes I just thought that this was the whole frustration problem came up. And another pretty funny story was that you know how it is. Sometimes, especially when you work hard for a company, you take a lot of risks. Even though it was not my company, I always considered that the companies I worked for somehow were my babies.
Absolutely.
And I had one retailer who just never paid his bills. Well, he paid, but always like a year later or whatever. It's just very annoying, and I spent so much time running after him. Back then I had a booth with like, it was like a glass, so it was quite open, but it was still closed. And he came, always placed orders, and I said, yeah, but can we pay this bill?
Outstanding.
And then we move ahead. Yeah, but this is already paid. And I said, what is already paid? I said, yeah. I did the payment because often back then in Basel, because you only saw your retailers maybe once or twice a year. Today we interact much more. They obviously they always tended to pay the late bills just before the meeting, so you weren't too upset. But in this case, it didn't happen. And he said to me, but it's paid and so on. And I was like, I was so furious because I just spent I don't know how much time trying to also towards my team, I didn't want to lose face. So he said to me, but it's paid. I said, yeah, but it's not on the bank account. But it's going to be in 5 to 10 minutes.
Oh, really? Okay.
I said, okay. So I said,
what year was this?
2012 maybe. No, it was before 2008,
No, it's
7 maybe.
Jack and Draw times.
Jack and Draw times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's soft group. Yeah.
7, 8. I was anyway, and I said, okay, and I said, give me 2 minutes. He said, yeah, sure. I said, what are you doing after my meeting? It was still nice. I said, after your meeting, I have 2 hours break.
Oh, lovely.
So I said, okay, that's good. So no meeting before 2 hours. I said, no meeting. I said, okay. So he said, good. So I walked out of the room, which was glass, and I locked.
Oh, no way.
I looked
From the outside. So
from
he's
the
in the
outside.
room.
So what are you doing? And I said, well, you have 2 hours. Here is,
Make sure you make the
you
payment.
have your phone. Here is a fax. Here's the number of the fax. So I gave him the number of the fax. So fax me the Swift invoice. And as soon as you have
Through
it,
glass.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was
Okay.
it was not like
It was see-through glass.
see-through glass.
Okay.
But he couldn't get out.
Yeah, obviously you locked the door.
So I just locked him in for until the payment slip came through, and it took him about 45 minutes.
Yeah. So
But then then he complained everywhere that I tried to, it's another moment where
hey, you got paid.
I got paid. I
things
got
you
paid.
gotta do.
And funnily enough, today I sometimes meet the person and it's okay. We get along very well. We say hello to each other. I don't know what he thinks about me in reality, but definitely we have a good. I would say we have a decent, normal relation. I don't work with him anymore because it was just for me. It was that payment. Once the payment was done, the payment slip. I said thank you. Now we can stop working together.
Oh, really? That's when you stopped. Okay.
Yeah,
It's
because there was no point. It's because I started with Jacket in 2001. And I think we worked for 5 years, and for 5 years,
It's the same over and over.
over and over.
It's not like they're struggling retailer or anything.
No.
Okay.
So this is 3 of the stories. Yeah.
Oh, that's
well,
2.
there's the 2 retailer story and
And the ball pen, yeah.
what else? I mean, there could be many more, but then we don't have that much time.
We have 2 minutes left.
Okay.
All right. It was lovely having a chat.
Yeah.
I mean, this was, let's say, the first
And
20 something years, roughly. Well, no, we hit 2013.
No. I mean, officially started 2000. It's 2023. That's 2023.
We hit now 2013, 14. That's when we sort of stopped. So the stories will come.
Yeah. Well.
The remaining stories that are coming, we will do
But-
next one maybe.
Well, as you said, we talked the first time 2014, the
Yeah.
2 of us.
Correct.
And since then I mean, and I've been very honest with you back then because you were interested in RJ, and I told you, look, I think it's a very interesting concept, but I can't sustain this concept. This is something I'm sometimes a bit too honest, one would say, but I told you, look, it's not the moment.
I think everything happens for a reason.
Absolutely.
We didn't work then.
But we work now.
We'll work now. So
And not just for one brand.
yeah, for 2,
Yeah.
and maybe some more coming.
Who knows?
Thank you very much.
Thank you too.
Take care.